Good day to you. Just a few days ago, 15,000 people hit the streets of Karnataka state in India. They burned the entire towns and left 2 people dead. The fanatics burned newspaper offices, and a curfew was imposed in a few of the Karnataka towns, all because a local newspaper published an article of mine about the burqa, the Islamic veil. The editors wanted to have a healthy debate on burqa, so they published the article. The reality is that there was no debate possible on this issue. Instead, the fanatics used it as an issue to destroy property and loot and burn town after town in the name of Islam. It was a mayhem of intolerance. I wrote in the article that the burqa, or head-to-toe gown, or headscarf, or hijab, is a symbol of oppression. And even though the Quran prescribes it, women should not wear it. We can see ignorance reaching such heights that Islamic fundamentalists do not hesitate to take lives of people. The most tragic thing is that in the largest democracy of the world, it is an accepted idea that there should be a limit to freedom of expression. The question of limitation is very much related to criticism of Islam. Islam has been largely exempted from the critical scrutiny applied to other religions. I've been fighting for freedom of expression for years and paid a high price for it. I'm not allowed to go back to my country, Bangladesh, from which I was thrown out 16 years ago. And because of my ideals, I was also thrown out of West Bengal, a state of India where I lived in exile in recent years. Even though I am a Bengali, I have no right to live in Bangladesh and West Bengal, the lands where my fellow Bengalis live. I'm not only banished from those lands, I'm also banned and blacklisted. Publishers do not dare to publish my books, and editors of newspapers and magazines do not have courage to publish my articles. And now the problem is not limited just to Bengal anymore. I have been seeing the same scenario in other parts of India too. The Indian government gave me permission to live in India a few years ago, but now it has declared that it will not extend my residence permit anymore. Even though I had been having a valid document of residence permit for India, now for the past 2 years, I have not been allowed to live in India. Whenever I go there to live, the Indian government has asked me to leave the country immediately. The big problem of India is that all the political parties appear to be having a Muslim appeasement policy. Muslims number 25% of the population in India, and their numbers are increasing rapidly. Politicians are running after Muslim votes. They push for the building of mosques, the Muslim prayer halls, and madrasas, the Quranic schools. They encourage Muslim demands that they be allowed to have their Islamic law, which discriminates against women, and their rights of expression in a democracy, even though their opponents should not be allowed the rights of free expression. In India, 5 fatwas or Islamic religious edict have been issued against me. I was physically attacked by some Muslim fundamentalists, got numerous death threats, witnessed violent protests against my writing in different cities, witnessed hundreds of burning vehicles, bloodthirsty mobs, and madness. The threats do not necessarily come from fanatics. They come also from the so-called liberal intelligentsia. Most of the intellectuals defend Islam as being India's minorities religion. They have no problem if Muslim women's human rights are constantly violated, and of course, those intellectuals consider themselves as defenders of human rights. By supporting women's rights everywhere, I have criticized all kinds of religions, tradition, cultures, and customs. But to my surprise, I'm labeled as being anti-Islam. This has led to some people saying that I am a Muslim hater. But they are wrong. By no means am I a Muslim hater. I always stand beside oppressed people. I stood beside Muslims when they are oppressed in Gujarat, in India, in Palestine, and in Bosnia. I defended their rights to live, just as I stood beside the Hindus who are oppressed in Bangladesh and by the Christians in Pakistan. To me, their religious identity is not important. I consider them as human beings. Nobody should be oppressed because of her or his belief or non-belief. I have always stood for this. The criticism I make of the religions, I do by writing. I do not go to harm the believers physically with a sword. No, I do not believe in violence. The fanatics never accept the idea to have a dialogue or debate with me or write articles or books opposing me. They come to kill me, for they are convinced by their belief in their religion that an apostate must be killed. Still, people like to believe that Islam is a religion of peace, but since my childhood, I have witnessed the opposite. I believe no country becomes civilized without criticizing the dogmatic practices of its religions. Without separating state and religion, no state or society become modern. Should Islam continue to be untouchable? Many Western intellectuals who are enjoying secularism in their own country are not agreeing to criticize Islamic oppression of women for fear it might hurt the religious sentiments of Muslims. But I ask, should it remain how it is, and should women continue to suffer? Without criticism of Islam, it would never be possible for Islamic countries to separate state and religion, never possible to have a secular education instead of a Quranic education, never possible to stop Islam-based politics. And if such didn't happen, Islamic states would remain in darkness forever. Women would not enjoy the right to live as human beings. As a child, I was forced to read the verses of the Quran, but I could not understand the meaning of the verses that I read. Like other children, I was just parroting words. Our language is Bengali, not Arabic. It was impossible to know the meaning of the verses, for no matter how many times I repeated and memorized them, I had no way of knowing what I was saying. I was told that Allah wanted the Quran to be read in its original language. But this made me all the more curious to know the meaning of the verses. One day I discovered a book that translated the Quran into Bengali. I read it for the first time, the whole holy book. And guess what? I became an atheist. I did not